universities around here in the evening, some as late as from 8 to 10 o'clock in the evening, and they've been permitted to keep that.
Yeah, what would be the difference? We've already ruled that a teacher can't take
time. And of course, this opinion would change if the...
No, I'm suggesting what the situation was.
Friday closing price of Bell South was having large chunks of their business eaten away by non-regulated people, and that's something you still don't find.
Ever since graduation from high school, he looked forward to running in the Olympics. So, you know, he did well in the academy, so hey, he's just going for the gold.
Right now, we're in the process of putting a foam blanket on all the exposed surfaces. And with the help of the plant personnel and Montgomery Fire Department, they're getting on with the job.
Also, the public staff in using the capital structure that they used, it was quite different than the capital structures that have been approved in the vast majority of cases throughout the country.
Numbers why I'm not going to rule in either extreme for either party in this case. Right now, to come back before this commission no later than April the 30th, 1985, bringing with it a complete post-divestiture test year from which this commission can study concrete figures and make a decision based on a structured format in lieu of bias speculation. And number 4, that all rates be implemented on a temporary...
This board has totally adopted our plan of excellence. They've totally adopted the report we made and recommendation we made to them. And over the next few weeks and months, we'll be specifying with them timetables, deadlines to meet. We met yesterday with them in some length, and we expected to have some differences to work out. We had no differences to work out. We're all in total agreement on what should be done in Lowndes County to improve the education system.
State securities officials say the so-called penny stocks are not normally listed on the stock exchange. Legitimate brokers find it difficult to get information on the low-price shares. Bob Prince of the State Securities Commission says people are losing money on the deals.
Unbeknown to the investor, many times the management is lacking in experience. The project is designed to create a false market, and as soon as the shares increase in price, then the original promoters who have signed themselves thousands of shares for no consideration bails out and leaves a lot of people throughout the country holding nothing other than a piece of paper.
Officials say although the profit for penny stocks may appear great, losses can also be large. This is Norman Lumpkin, WSFA TV News reporting.
Today, the state and the Lowndes County Board announced they'd come to terms. All the state recommendations are being adopted.
We expected to have some differences to work out. We had no differences to work out. We're all in total agreement on what should be done in Lowndes County to improve the education system. I know of no place that we've had any better cooperation, and we're looking forward to working in Lowndes County.
Lowndes County officials say there were some sticky spots in the recommendations, particularly the high school consolidation, but they say they're convinced those changes are necessary to upgrade the system.
I think the most touching part of it was the consolidation of schools. Not consolidation as to say, but to what schools would be left high school. So the Board of Education sought through the report, and they made the best decision that they feel that would be better for the students.
School starts August 23rd in Lowndes County, and officials say there's a year's worth of work to do before then. But they say the work has already begun. And they say the people of Lowndes County are behind their commitment to quality education. Lynn Sampson, WSFA TV News.
It's a unique and complicated rate case because of divestiture, the splitting up of AT&T and the local phone companies, a move which South Central Bell says forced it to ask for $250 million in a rate increase.
I believe that this company intentionally asked for more because they believed that they would never get what they wanted unless they started high. Now, I can't prove that, but that's what I think.
The other commissioners echoed that sentiment, but felt some increase was due. The amount agreed to, $35 million on a temporary basis until its implementation can be measured. This means your home phone bill will go up by no more than $1.50 a month rather than the $11 South Central Bell Vice President Carlton Baker says the phone company wanted.
Talk in terms of $1.50 increase when we've asked for 11, to me just defies the imagination, and it's not something we will be able to live with.
Baker says the company hasn't decided what to do, but its options include lower quality service, laying off employees, or appealing the case to the state Supreme Court. The order also requires no more free directory assistance calls except for the disabled, elimination of zone charges, which could actually mean lower bills for an estimated 200,000 rural customers, a moratorium on local measured service, which gives discounts for fewer local calls, optional service insurance for line repairs costing you an extra 90 cents a month, and a study of the first year's effect on these new rates. The phone company considers its original request based on fact, and the PSC's order incredulous and politically motivated, but it will immediately implement the new order, which will begin showing up on your next phone bill.
Any further business to come before the commission today? Not to stand adjourned.
Chris Grimshaw, WSFA TV News.
Pumps here in Alabama, and I'd like to say that we had a very successful trip, and they were told that multinationals are a fact of life, and they are going to come to this country. They are coming to this country, and if they are coming to this country, we ought to have some of them in our own state. Now, we do have some of them in our own state. We have nearly $2 billion worth of foreign investment.
Are these proposed expansions directly related to your trip?
No, the expansions,
Well, when it gets to this point, you've got to depend basically on luck. Of course, we're following up each and every lead that comes in, but there are only so many procedural type things that can be done. Due to the numerous events of this type throughout the country, you do sometimes assume that the worst might have happened.
Well, they came up the sidewalk, kind of hurried like, and went across the street into the First National Bank.
And the bank is where, just down the street?
Right over there.
And what was Sherry gonna do?
She was going to go and get her a Coca-Cola. And I gave her some money before I left the truck. And for her to go get her a Coca-Cola. And then that was the last I seen her. I didn't look back.
When you came back and you saw that Sherry wasn't in the truck, were you concerned that she wasn't back?
Well, not at first. It's a shorter time that I'd been gone.
Local police officers and the Stringfellows spent the rest of that day, Wednesday, June 6th, looking for Sherry all around town, just not believing that she could be gone. They say she's a happy child, kind of shy with few friends, who loves animals and is something of a tomboy. She'll be 13 in 4 days. Her mother and stepfather are still in the middle of a nightmare.
I don't have any energy to do anything anymore. You just don't have the desire. It's like you think she's going to walk in a minute.
Are you still working?
No, I've worked a week since all this happened. I can't concentrate.
Are you pretty much just staying home and listening for the phone or something like that?
Mostly. And just listen for it to ring. We stay up at his mama's a lot. And we hope the phone call will come that'll tell us they found her.
Police Chief Kenneth Flower says he's stymied. He can't find any clues. There are no leads, but he keeps a picture of Sherry and a missing poster next to his desk to remind him that a little girl is missing.
Disc jockey here in Dothan with a local radio station for several years. Mr. Bell. Each of the men have been charged with 1 count each of conspiracy to use fraudulent passports. Each have also been charged with 2 counts of fraudulent passport violation. The investigation has been international in scope, involving several foreign countries. The passports were obtained in the names of people known to be deceased. U.S. Attorney's Office, Montgomery.
I was Montgomery connected, and they would probably be from.
The thrill of victory, the agony of defeat. The first City Recreational Olympic Games are the brainchild of Betty Hutchinson.
Since this was the Olympic year, I decided that I would suggest to the department that we have Olympics at each of the community centers and incorporate it into a citywide event, and it just mushroomed.
There is no gymnastics competition or cycling or Greco-Roman wrestling. They've been replaced by free throw shooting, dominoes, and checkers. Dawn, what does it take to be a good checkers player?
Well, I don't know, because I'm not a very good checker player.
Table tennis won't be recognized by the International Olympic Committee until 1988. But it's an official sport of the first recreational games.
You need to look at the bracket so you'll know you're playing. And once you find who you're playing, just watch them play and see how they play so you find their weak spots and all. And so you need a good backhand and be able to move and concentrate real good.
4 years from now, athletes from all over the world will gather in Seoul, South Korea. Based on this year's turnout, recreational games are likely to be an annual event. Dave Cody, WSFA TV Sports.
Congratulations to you.
I'm looking forward to the next 4 or 5 years on here in Birmingham. It feels at home.
But I think Doug will give us something that we've needed, and that's the opportunity to become a very dominant lineman, someone who can line up and command the attention of more than one person over there in that offensive line. I think that Doug Smith can do this.
We can't, please use the microphone. We cannot hear you. Please use the microphone.
I think we're, on our way up once again and into dominating the swimming world. It feels wonderful. I mean, it's just kind of sinking in slowly, too. I don't know, when I first finished, it's just like, oh, it's done. And it was like, it went until I was climbing on the pool, so I thought, my gosh, that race is over, and it's under my belt, and, I've accomplished something that I've set out to accomplish. I have a feeling, though, it's going to start feeling a lot better, too, as the immediate present wears off a little bit.
I feel great with the silver. I mean, I was shooting for a gold, and I knew I'd get a gold or a silver, and I got the silver, and I'm happy for Mary because this is her probably last Olympics and one of her last meets, and I mean, I'm still 16, and I'm going to be here in '88, and I've got another chance, and she doesn't, so I'm happy.
The last 3 months, it's been on my mind. I mean, really on my mind. And I suppose it's been in the back the last 4 or 5 years, and now it's almost a relief to have it over with.
We have two of the medalists from the women's 100-meter breaststroke. We will have the third very short.
But I just told these guys, I said, you give me a lead, if it's 1/100th or 2 seconds, I'll win it. And that's what they did for me.
We can't, please use the microphone. We cannot hear you. Please use the microphone.
I think we're, on our way up once again and into dominating the swimming world. It feels wonderful. I mean, it's just kind of sinking in slowly, too. I don't know, when I first finished, it's just like, oh, it's done. And it was like, it went until I was climbing on the pool, so I thought, my gosh, that race is over, and it's under my belt, and, I've accomplished something that I've set out to accomplish. I have a feeling, though, it's going to start feeling a lot better, too, as the immediate present wears off a little bit.
I feel great with the silver. I mean, I was shooting for a gold, and I knew I'd get a gold or a silver, and I got the silver, and I'm happy for Mary because this is her probably last Olympics and one of her last meets, and I mean, I'm still 16, and I'm going to be here in '88, and I've got another chance, and she doesn't, so I'm happy.
The last 3 months, it's been on my mind. I mean, really on my mind. And I suppose it's been in the back the last 4 or 5 years, and now it's almost a relief to have it over with.
We have two of the medalists from the women's 100-meter breaststroke. We will have the third very short.
But I just told these guys, I said, you give me a lead, if it's 1/100th or 2 seconds, I'll win it. And that's what they did for me.
With the director of the Weather Service. What did he tell you in those hearings?
Well, they told us a lot about why. We wanted to explore with him, what are you going to do until a replacement can occur? It'll take over 2 years for a replacement. In the meantime, we cannot be left short-handed where we do not have adequate warnings for hurricanes and other weather disasters. And so they are working on it. And we, of course, insisted that they explore with NASA, they explore with Marshall Space Flight Center in Huntsville, they explore the new storm system, trying to figure out ways that can take the place of this lost satellite. We only have 2 of these satellites, and obviously one can't do the work of 2. You're going to have to compensate by using other devices, other types of radar, other methods by which you will try to get early warnings about storm formations, where they're going, their movements, and a lot of other things. We only have 2 of these satellites, and obviously one can't do the work of 2. You're going to have to compensate by using other devices, other types of radar, other methods by which you will try to get early warnings about storm formations, where they're going, their movements, and a lot of other things.
We would use the van to transport disabled people, both in Dothan and from the surrounding area. It depends on what the need may be, but any disabled person that is related to our programs in any way, we will work with them in providing that transportation.
2 terminals. We want these teams in Geneva and Dale and Coffee and all these surrounding counties.
Twenty-three-year-old Doug Smith was watching TV with his neighbor Edward Johnson when someone knocked on the door.
I said, who it is? The guy said Ray. And so when he said Ray, Doug got up and he finna open the door. They didn't give him a chance to open the door all the way. And when they busted the door in, he fell on the floor. And he was scrambling around on the floor, and the sofa was over there by the window. And when he got over there by the sofa, they shot him and he fell out the window.
After Smith fell out of his apartment window, he limped across the roof of the adjacent building, jumped off, then crawled into a neighbor's apartment.
They shot him in here and come out. Right here. It's bad when they shoot you like that, I'm telling you. It's cold-blooded.
While authorities aren't talking, this much we do know. The 2 men who went into Smith's apartment were plainclothes officers from the Mountain Brook Police Department. Mountain Brook officials say they aren't ready to release the names of the men yet, nor are they at liberty to say what they were doing in southwest Birmingham. All they say is the case is still under investigation. Cynthia Pryor, BRC 6 News.
Well, I'm already intimidated. My kid's so hard and so well and everything. I'm just ready to go ahead and write my check to muscular dystrophy right now and pay off and
See what I mean?
Go on about our business
That's
right
exactly
now.
what I'm talking about. That's it. We'll have a lot of fun, though.
Congratulations to you.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to the next 4 or 5 years on here in Birmingham. It feels at home.
But I think Doug will give us something that we've needed, and that's the opportunity to become a very dominant lineman, someone who can line up and command the attention of more than one person over there in that offensive line. I think that Doug Smith can do this.
It's activities located at both Maxwell Air Force Base and Gunner Air Force. We purchase a variety of commodities and services and construction to support our various customers.
Exchange, plus the $1,500 that the exchange debts are giving you. So here's your check for $3,000. And I'll get a kiss.
Yes. Thank you.
We've been together for about 7 years now, but could you imagine being married to that? And it's not like this other mess you see on TV. You know, it's written into the script that they solve it in 30 minutes.
What we can do. Thank you, Jess. But surely we can get 6 of us in here between now and September the 1st. Give it a hard try.
Chemistry.
Mary Lenore Winston.
He would stride down into the valley, and the Hebrew soldiers would cower as they heard him and parade further up the other side, closer to the Hebrews' camp. Even when the giant was not walking.
It has been narrowed down, to my understanding, to a field of 3 people. And on August 11th, the board will interview those 3 candidates. Those candidates will also be on the campus on August 10th to interview and talk with faculty, staff, as well as students.
Florida, unless this spread to Alabama and other communities, or if it already exists in Alabama, we want to serve notice. There are persons here, Reverend Nettles and Reverend Reynolds from Anniston, if you have any questions about any of these issues. And we're glad to have him. We think that we have to challenge our officials, our elected officials, to uphold the law and to protect the rights of all citizens. Governor Wallace is not just the governor of white people. He received black votes. As the cry for help for disenfranchised citizens in Mount Vernon, Alabama, as well as Mayor Pritchett, who just re-elected, and we're glad to have him with us, Reverend John Nettles, the Alabama State SCLC president, and we're glad. I ask him to uphold his oath, to abide by the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of Alabama, both of which declare that people's right to vote will be protected. Reverend John Nettles, the Alabama State SCLC president on my left, and is here, and Mr. Reverend. And we have asked the Justice Department to investigate this housing discrimination, this blatant racist attempt to discriminate against black people in St. Petersburg, Florida. Unless this spread to Alabama and other communities, or if it already exists in Alabama, we want to serve notice that we will fight this with all the resources at our command and demand that our Justice Department address these issues.
Time-wise, there were hundreds of dairy farms in Montgomery County. Today, there are only 210 in the entire state. Up until yesterday, Jimmy and Donna Mathis operated this dairy farm in Elba. But yesterday, the Mathises moved the milk-producing Holsteins in their herd to a larger farm in Montgomery County. The remaining calves and heifers will be transferred as soon as weather permits.
We could move from 65 acres to 300 acres and better barns and facilities, milking facilities. And we were trying to grow into the dairy business, and so we figured this would be the best way to give us enough room to grow with this much acreage.
Alabama is a milk deficit state, meaning we consume more milk than we produce. Mathis and other dairymen in the Southeast want to band together to form the Sunbelt Dairy Federation.
We'd rather produce our own milk down here and enough for the demand.
The Farm Bureau Federation supports the Sunbelt Federation. They say both the consumer and the producer will benefit in the long run.
That you have a choice of helping the dairy farmer maintain a supply of milk here in the Southeast that is fresher, cheaper than your alternate would be if this plan is not successful and the dairy industry in the Southeast further declines and you have to become further dependent on an outside supply of milk.
Myrick says milk prices would go up by only 8 cents under the Sunbelt Dairy Federation plan, but he says if more local dairy farmers are forced to go out of business, Alabama will have to bring in milk from Wisconsin, and that could push the retail price up 24 cents a gallon. Jimmy Parrish says he's sticking with dairy farming through the bad times, and he feels sure the good times are still to come. Lynn Sampson, WSFA TV News, Snowden.
Journey and parade further up the other side, closer to the Hebrews' camp.
Wait short time.
About the unequal status of the equipment. A lad's staff.
Clarence Alonzo Woodbury. Shehu Davan Sawaka.
In September of 1982, Ray Kelly lived in this house in Goodwater, Alabama. The barrels piled around were a few of hundreds environmental officials later said contained hazardous chemical wastes. Kelly told me the material was paint, but 21 months later he and 4 others were indicted for illegal dumping, and Kelly was charged with willful endangerment of the public. Unlike the others, Kelly didn't show up for arraignment before a federal district judge in Montgomery, and U.S. Marshals began the search. Kelly was believed to be in the Tampa, Florida area, and on Friday, July the 13th, he was located and brought before a U.S. magistrate there. An official in Tampa says the magistrate felt sorry for Kelly and didn't want to make him stay in jail over the weekend before making bail, so he was released on his own signature with the promise that his cousin would co-sign the bond. Neither Kelly nor his cousin ever showed up. The U.S. Attorney's Office in Tampa says a warrant to arrest Kelly has been issued because he jumped bail. Federal marshals in Alabama and Florida are looking for Kelly, but no one really knows where he is. Federal charges aren't the only ones Kelly will face if he ever returns to Alabama to stand trial. Police in Goodwater have warrants out charging Kelly with driving without a license. Dennis Latham, WSFA TV News.
Evaluating incidentally their own husbandry and indeed their... I believe I have learned. Lesson 1. To speak.
Robert, Kenya Flowers. Robert, Kenya Flowers. Auburn, Ray Foreman.
These women come from all across Alabama. They believe agriculture is a key to this nation's economy. They say the family farm must survive for a healthy economy, and farmers must receive a fair price for their commodities, something they're not receiving now.
No way can we make a profit when the cost of production is so much greater than what we are receiving for our commodities.
What Mrs. Shepard and other wife leaders hope for is a strong 1985 farm bill. They plan to lobby for that bill and also make consumers aware of what it will do.
The programs sometimes get misconstrued and misinterpreted, but basically the farm programs should be in such a way that the farmer could receive a profit from the marketplace, not from government.
The farmers are going out every day. They're going broke. And the ones who are existing now are hanging on by a shoestring. And something has got to be done to give us a profit.
This convention will deal with a number of topics, from legislative lobbying to farm safety, all related to agriculture. Those who know say wife does a good job representing the farmer.
We hope that it will be of some benefit and we can get legislation that will be helpful, and the understanding of the consumer, which will also be helpful.
Cal Calloway, WSFA TV News, Eufaula.
Birmingham's Sam Farlow is a defending Alabama amateur champion, but he was 6 over through 12 holes. Farlow hit this approach to number 3 to within 15 feet of the pin, but his birdie putt would not drop. That's the kind of round it was for Sam Farlow, who finished a distant second to Talbot Griffin on this same course in the Montgomery Invitational less than a month ago. Griffin, playing on his home course once again, is considered the man to beat. After a chip in for birdie on number 4, the former Alabama golfer rolled in this long birdie putt from the fringe on number 7. He made the turn 1 under par. 2 rain delays made it a long front 9 for Griffin and his group. The course, though wet, drained exceptionally well. That was the least of John Sadie's worries here on 9.
I thought if it was touching.
Tournament officials had to call for a string to see if the Montgomery golfer's ball was out of bounds. They determined it was. Playing along with Sadie was recent future Masters champion Wes Tuck. The Troy State golfer made the turn 2 over par. The early clubhouse leader is Birmingham's Bubba Major, who fashioned a 2 under par 68 this morning before the rains came. Dave Cody, WSFA TV Sports.
Come on in. Offside. Well, who?
These young men are a part of the 21st Montgomery Lions Club International Youth Camp, involving young people from 22 different countries and 14 different states. The Montgomery Lions Club is extremely proud that we can be a part of working with outstanding young men, motivating them for leadership and service to their community in the years that lie ahead.
At Jordan Dam, north of Wetumpka, the power generators are running full blast. And still, gates have been open in the dam since Wednesday to drain off the overflow from Lake Jordan. Power company officials say all this is very unusual for this time of year. While they expect spring and autumn floods, so much extra water in the middle of the summer is a big surprise.
Normally, we store water at Lake Martin as a reservoir lake in order to have the capacity to generate when peak usage hits us in the summertime.
There has been no problem handling the extra water at any of the power company's 14 dams. The flooding has in fact helped Alabama Power ease up its use of coal to produce electricity. Still, in towns along the river like Wetumpka, the high waters are clear evidence of the sheer volume of rain that has fallen upstream in the past week. So unless the rest of the year is unseasonably dry, all this wet weather may have a very good side effect. It may mean lower cost in producing power, and that may mean lower power bills for you. Tom Foreman, WSFA TV News on the Coosa River.
Well, there are some things that you can do, and one, of course, is not to smoke. And I suspect if there were any one particular thing that we could advise people not to do, it would be not to smoke. There are other things that can be done. Of course, we need to take care of ourselves as far as sunlight is concerned. There's no question that there's a high instance of various kinds of skin cancer, which is related to sun exposure, and that's a cumulative thing over a person's entire lifetime.
Sydney Beck is a founding force behind WIFE in Alabama. She formed the state's first chapter in the Wiregrass and later became state president. Mrs. Beck says she's heard a lot of talk about agriculture over the years, talk which sounds nice but doesn't help the farmer. She says an example is the push to get government out of agriculture.
Government is going to be involved in agriculture, like it or not. That agriculture will be used as a political bargaining tool, because it's about the only thing this country has left to bargain with.
And despite talk otherwise, she says there can be no free market for farmers.
We realize that when we or Mother Nature gets supply to a point that we should have a decent price, our government only instigates an embargo or increases imports.
It's agriculture which WIFE members push when they go to Washington. What they're most concerned about is the 1985 Farm Bill, which is being put together now.
Future of agriculture as we know it, and the family farm structure as we know it, depends upon the outcome of this bill.
Without a strong farm bill, Mrs. Beck says the base of the American economy, agriculture, will be in trouble.
The bottom line is that producers must have a price for their products. We need exports, we need many other things, but if that price is not there, I don't care what kind of program there is, you're not going to be any better off.
Cal Calloway, WSFA TV News, Eufaula.
I'm really proud of Alabama WIFE.
I'll be 10-8 as soon as I can. 84 clear, Captain 521. Did you give a number?
The month of August used to be called Sextilis. That is until a calendar change and a man called Augustus Caesar came along. But the most interesting thing about August isn't in its history, it's in its skies. Planetarium Director Tom Britton fills us in on the details.
At mid-month, there's an interesting alignment of 6 planets. Just after sunset, we can see the naked eye planets of Jupiter, Mars and Saturn in a generally straight line from southeast to southwest. If you have a good telescope, you can see Uranus and Neptune between Jupiter and Mars. And just northwest of Saturn is tiny Pluto, discovered in 1930 and the most distant planet from the Sun. Mars is just west of its rival Antares, the red supergiant star that is the heart of the Scorpion. The Perseid meteor shower will peak about 3 a.m. on Sunday, August 12th, but anywhere from 50 to 100 meteors per hour can be seen starting after dark on Saturday, the 11th. By looking northeastward toward the direction of the rising constellation of Perseus, it won't be long before you see your first meteor. The Perseid shower is the most reliable of all the annual meteor showers, but this year all but the brightest will be obscured by the glare of the full moon.
You might want to photograph the meteor shower. Try using a camera that you can lock the shutter open on, mount it on a tripod. And don't forget to use a cable release to help reduce vibrations to the camera. If you need more help, consult your local photo dealer. And enjoy watching the stars. I'm Dennis Latham.
It's only fitting that Alabama's Confederate Memorial Park, where a retirement home for Confederate veterans once stood, be the site of the state's latest Civil War reenactment. Men from Alabama, Tennessee, Mississippi, and Louisiana donned Confederate uniforms and relived history this weekend. Many of these Johnny-come-lately Rebs have blood ties to Confederate soldiers and are proud of it.
I had a great-great-grandfather who fought in the 38th Alabama Infantry, and I've had several uncles that was in the 27th and the 31st Alabama Infantry.
These mock battles aren't just Civil War games. The reenactors try to keep as close to history as possible, and they don't take kindly to deserters.
Firing squad, ready, aim, fire!
There weren't any Yankees around for the rebels to take pot shots at, but the Confederates were able to get in a few verbal barbs.
The Civil War wasn't fought over slavery. That's something that the Northerners want you to believe. It was fought for states' rights, and the South was invaded. They didn't start the war.
Lisa Walsh, WSFA TV News, Chilton County.
All right, quick. What isotope has a half-life of 53 billion years? Who was William Henry Harrison, Secretary of State? And where is the Strait of Messina? Now, if you think those are tough questions, guess again. Those were standard fare at Auburn University this weekend as 18 collegiate teams matched wits in the Allen Ludden Memorial College Bowl tournament. What is College Bowl? Well, Director Pat McLaughlin says it's sort of like mental gymnastics.
It's very exciting. It's like playing any kind of a sport, because I play tennis and I played college ball. And you get the adrenaline flowing like in a sport. Your mind really hurts because you're trying to struggle for the answer.
This Canadian-born communications theorist gained fame
in practical terms, College Bowl is just a bunch of students competing to see who knows the most.
Correct.
Now, almost anybody can become fairly skilled in a single subject. What makes this game challenging is that the categories can range from chemistry to literature to surfboarding. So while specialization helps in answering some questions, the students' general knowledge about everything is what really counts.
I don't think it has anything to do with how good of a student you are. I mean, it's just not related at all.
It's whether you have the ability to retain the knowledge that you presented with.
College Bowl is billed as a growing sport. The latest trivia craze certainly isn't hurting the movement, and if things go as hoped, Auburn will play host to the National College Bowl Championships early next year. Tom Foreman, WSFA TV News in Auburn.
We all endorsed Mondale in 1980, and he lost. And the reason he lost was we were not able to convince the American people to turn out in massive numbers adequate to win the election because we didn't have the beef. And I'm saying to the Mondale campaign, we've got to have something to give the American people. I see that statement, but where's the beef? Where are the programs that are going to put people back to work? And that's what we have. That's the issue.
Carl Lewis made it look so easy as he kicked past a field of the world's best sprinters in the 100 meters. Lewis not only won the gold, but he also seized a golden moment when he grabbed a spectator's flag as big as his promise to win 4 gold medals in track and field. The surprise of the day came from Al Joyner, who turned in a winning performance in the triple jump. The disappointment came from Willie Banks, the heavily favored American record holder. With a twisted ankle, Banks finished 6th. Al Joyner said he had something to prove to those who had not paid him much attention.
I thought I was American, and I was on the team too, but I said, well, since they don't know about me, I try to make sure they find out about me tonight.
From the same family, Jackie Joyner won a silver medal in the heptathlon. It was the first time a brother and sister won medals on the same day.
For us, for our family, this means a lot, and I'm just grateful that God has spared our lives to see us do these things, and I hope we continue to do well also.
Edwin Moses, in his 104th straight victory, easily qualified for the finals in the 400-meter hurdles. His big evening is tonight when he tries to repeat his 1976 Olympic win. Noah Nelson, NBC News, Los Angeles.
Talbot Griffin was playing on home ground for this rain-shortened event. He finished 3 under yesterday to place him at 4 under for the tourney. His problems today came on the greens. Several times, the University of Alabama golfer two-putted on holes that were soaked after several hard rains. Griffin shot a 74 today to even his final score at par, a 54-hole total of 210. At times during today's round, Greg Jones of Mobile had the lead, but tied with Scott Warzeka for second place, 1 shot back at 211. John Sadie of Montgomery was 1 shot back of the leaders at one point, but ran into problems on 17. Montgomery's Talbot Griffin the winner in this year's Alabama Amateur Golf Championship.
Richard Burton was nominated for an Oscar 7 times, as far back as 1953, in one of his earliest Hollywood films, The Robe. But the movie community never quite figured out what to do with the Welsh-born stage actor with the magnificent speaking voice. It wasn't until later in films like Beckett that Burton was able to marry that theatrical eloquence with film style.
So long as Beckett must improvise his honor from day to day, he will serve you faithfully.
Beckett was another Oscar nomination, as was Anne of a Thousand Days.
I will marry Anne if it breaks the earth in two like an apple and flings the 2 halves into the void.
When Richard Burton made Night of the Iguana in Mexico in 1964, the presence of Elizabeth Taylor, who was not in the film, gave the movie its notoriety. Their highly publicized romance began a few years earlier on the set of Cleopatra, when Burton was signed to play Mark Antony opposite Taylor in the title role. Their romance made Burton an international celebrity, but his critics said the relationship eroded his genius. They co-starred in many films, the best of which was probably Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf.
You can stand it. I cannot stand it. You can stand it. You married me for it.
This battle of wills was carried over into real life as the pair married, divorced, remarried, and divorced again. Once the highest-paid actor of his time, Burton's film career faded into mediocre movies such as The Medusa Touch or action-adventure films like The Wild Geese. To rekindle his career, Burton in 1982 returned to the stage with his ex-wife in the play Private Lives. The play itself was blasted by the critics, did fair business, and then closed in Los Angeles when the curiosity factor passed. Burton was working on a film version of George Orwell's 1984, as well as a sequel to The Wild Geese, when he died today in Switzerland at the age of 58. Jim Brown, NBC News, Los Angeles.
that just I think that's the most unpardonable sin. The people elect a person, be it whatever position it is, to take a stand, to say yes or no. And I would much rather someone vote in on a position that I personally oppose than to not have the courage to take a stand at all. If they're not going to vote, why are they there?
What do you think his reason was for not voting?
I have no idea. Now, only, as I say, when you look at his record and realize that he has a very poor record on environmental issues, on conservation issues.
They're calling themselves concerned Christians and have gathered at the 7-Eleven on the Atlanta highway to protest the selling of what they call pornographic magazines. The leader of the group says they're demonstrating because morals are a community responsibility.
Private morals are people's business, but public morals are the business of the community. And obscenity laws are designed to safeguard the community from pornography. And we wanted to call this out to the attention of the citizens of Montgomery.
But some shoppers at 7-Eleven, however, don't agree.
People are going to buy them, no matter who sells them, and everybody has a free choice in what they want to look at and what they want to read.
In fact, the manager of this store says the picketers have improved their business. He says several customers are shopping here and buying the magazines because of the demonstrators.
That's the only reason I came in. I didn't really want a magazine. I'm just protesting their protest.
In response to the demonstrations, 7-Eleven is passing out leaflets with a toll-free number so that people can call if they have questions. So far, they have no plans to stop selling the magazines. Terry Stanton, WSFA TV News.
Investors have stampeded into the market, causing a surge to a record volume of over 200 million shares traded in one day. The previous record was 172 million shares traded in one day. Expert stock and securities analyst Will Hill Tankersley says institutions with cash surplus accounts triggered the surge.
Well, it's continuing to go up. This morning, as an example, it's 1223 on the Dow. That's one of the indicators we use, which is about 22 points. On Friday, as you know, it was up 36 points on 236 million shares. Today, the first hour, over 60 million shares have traded, which is a lot of shares. Basically, we feel that this is institutional buying. It's an institutional buying, I don't like to use the word panic, but an institutional buying movement where the big institutions, banks, insurance companies, corporations, profit-sharing plans, things of that sort, have come into the market with tremendous amounts of money that they've had in government bonds, CDs, short-term obligations of various kinds, and they're putting it in the stock market. And of course, when you have a lot more buying interest than you have selling interest, the market will go up. And that's what has happened. And in Alabama, what we see here is we see a lot of investors, institutional investors, and we have a lot of institutional investors, banks, insurance companies, corporations, and so forth in Alabama.
Stock and securities expert Tankersley says the institutions may or may not be correct in thinking that the interest rates will go down and that the economy will improve. But he says that's the consensus, and that's why they are pumping millions of dollars into the stock market. This is Norman Lumpkin, WSFA TV News reporting.
Can be prepared and submitted to EPA. We welcome your comments on these amendments to the regulations, which I have included with a copy of my statement for the record.
Thank you, Dan. At this time, we have no one.